Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Blame It On Marketing. We are talking about something which I think most marketers have encountered, and that's in general agencies, but we're talking about why the perception of agencies is sometimes more on the negative side than the positive side. With us today we've got Tim Cameron Kitchen. He is the owner of ExposureNinja and he can introduce himself in a minute, but we've had him on a previous podcast as well, which was the Marketing Smackdown. So if you want to hear more from him, you can go over there or you can find Tim on social media and I'm sure he'll chat to you. I will hand over to Tim for an introduction.
Hey, yeah, my name's Tim. I run ExposureNinja and have done since 2013. I'm an ex-professional drummer and sort of landed on digital marketing and fell in love with it. And yeah, we're a team of about 100 and we absolutely freaking love it.
Also, it's worth mentioning that the episode, we were actually titling it Marketing Agencies Are Shite, just to be a little bit controversial. And that is because
Why have I agreed to this?
It's an ambush. Haha, you've been punked. So Tim, I want to ask you, because obviously we know when you work as an in-house marketer, as Ruta and I have done many, many times, sometimes there is a bit of a negative perception around marketing agencies. So why, I'm just going to ask you, why do people sometimes think marketing agencies are shit?
I think there's a lot of back and forth between agencies and client businesses. There's a lot of moaning, just to let you on in a little secret, there's a lot of moaning in agencies about clients as well. And I think it's always going to be the case. I think often the agency-client relationship, both sides are often under a lot of pressure and quite ambitious and trying to do big things. So I think that can make a relationship which is quite difficult. From an agency perspective, I think a lot of the disappointment that we see clients experiencing about agencies is, around under promising, over delivering and that type of stuff. Or, the agency's too slow or they're too fast or whatever. There's some sort of mismatch of expectations. I think the client says, why can't the agency just do this? It seems so simple. And the agency says, why can't the client just give us a clear brief? And, that leads to a bit of sad feelings on both sides. But, good agencies will understand that. Good agencies will know they'll be able to read the room. They'll know the sort of vibe that they're walking into and should be able to have a productive relationship. So I don't think all agencies are shite or should feel shite, hopefully.
I was just going to say, I think where some of it comes from when you've been an in-house marketer, I've actually not really worked on the agency side apart from now being a consultant. So I do feel the pain of sometimes there's just a mismatch between the client's expectations and what you've actually, concretely said that you're going to deliver in a contract. But I think where some of that comes when you're in-house is that you work with agencies who do overpromise and then really underdeliver, and so then therefore it kind of gives you this sort of like negative kind of feeling that if I go with an SEO agency and one SEO agency has wronged me, that they might all wrong me, and then it's quite difficult to sometimes figure out, because they're supposed to be the experts in that particular niche, right, most of the time. So sometimes it's quite difficult to figure out who are the good ones and who are the bad ones.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. We've got one client, for example, who we are their 8th SEO agency and we've won awards with them and, it's going really well for them. But I have so much respect for that business. If you, let's say I decided to take up boxing, for example, you get knocked out 7 times. To say, boxing seems good, I'm going to go back for an 8th time, that takes some real guts. So I think there are some situations where actually the client has done absolutely nothing wrong and they've been really unlucky a number of times over and over again. And there are other situations where we were looking at a brief the other day where the spend is, I forget, it's in a region of 10 million over the first year. First year of their business, they've got a spend of 10 million and their target revenue to generate from that is 50 million. Now, in the first year, that is extraordinary. They need speed and they need flawless execution and they need all of the stars to align and Mercury to be in retrograde and all this. That's almost impossible, but any agency that takes that on is effectively saying, yes, I validate these goals. It doesn't matter how much you caveat that. This is what they're saying that they want to, this is what they're saying that they want to buy. So if you take that project on, you are sort of saying, yep, we're going to be able to deliver this. And you can see that at the end of that first year, that agency is getting fired and it's going to be really nasty. There's no way for that to end nicely. So I think there's some situations where the client is just genuinely unlucky and they have really bad experience. And there are some signs where an agency should be able to see it and go, wait, this is a disaster waiting to happen.
I so agree. One of the areas where I see people fail the most with agencies and get the most upset is when whatever they target them against isn't the right target. So I know you gave like the 5x basically return. That could be one of those, or where they want traffic and then they realize, oh no, we don't want traffic, we want conversions, but it's been 7 months doing an SEO program and now they've got all the traffic and nothing's converting, and they get really mad. And it's like, but that's what you asked them for.
Yeah. I think we're talking later about if you're looking for an agency, but I think that making sure that you are completely aligned with the agency and that you're targeting the same goals. We're taking us as an example. We find it very difficult to be aligned to anything other than like revenue ROI type goals. We're very conversion focused and money type focused. And if people come to us asking for like creativity or some sort of secondary metric, we will really push back on that because that's not really in our DNA. At the same time, if you go to a more creative agency and your underlying goal is like, I want to make loads of money, well, they're going to be creative because that's what they do. Like they wake up in the morning and they think about creative stuff and they do creative stuff. They're not thinking about money. They're not hard-nosed, ruthless capitalists. So I think finding an agency that has that DNA and that naturally aligns to your goals is a good way of making sure that there is a decent relationship there.
So Tim, with that in mind, what are some of the kind of common failure points when working with an agency?
It depends on the size of the business. So I think if we take like large businesses, and large can mean like multinational or, huge companies, basically anyone who has a legal department and up, one of the main problems that we see is that there is a fundamental problem that the agency can't fix. I've got 2 examples of multi-billion companies that we've spoken to recently, and the main problem that the marketing team wants to fix actually is that there's an internal organization set up that means they can't get anything done. Right? That's it. So there's different teams in different areas and there's no clear hierarchy, and it makes it very inefficient and very difficult to get things done. The trouble is they've framed this as we need help with our SEO. So it's a completely different thing, right? They need the business equivalent of therapy, or they need some sort of change management program. So if you're going to be working in a situation like that, there's an SEO component and there's a massive change management component, and sort of recognizing that. Another problem that large companies face is that they can't implement anything. So, you get a massive report of things that you need to fix back from the agency, but it needs to go through legal and it needs to go through all these people. And if any one person says, not quite sure on that, it doesn't get done. So that can be really frustrating for both sides, because the marketing team and the agent in the client is like, I really want to get this stuff done, but they actually just can't get it done. And the agency is like, really want to see the impact of this stuff, and nothing gets done. I think in smaller businesses, big problem is expectations. Smaller businesses tend to be much more ambitious and have higher growth targets and sort of project those onto the agency, as we've discussed. There's also something I call swoop and poop leadership, or I heard called swoop and poop leadership, which is where there'll be someone in the company, usually either the founder or director level, who will every so often just sort of swoop in and So we had an example a little while ago where we built this website and we worked with the marketing team for ages to build this website, really, put loads of thought into it, loads of time into it. Company leadership weren't really too interested at all. Website launches, company leadership takes a look for the first time. Actually want to go for something completely different here. And then you're in a situation where, right, you've got to sort of unwind the brief. You've got to go back to actually the drawing board. And this is, 4 months after the drawing board was officially shut. And I think there can be a lot of that. There's also, new people who join the company who want to exert their, as is completely understandable, they want to exert their opinion and they want to make their mark on things, and that can be really frustrating for a marketing manager inside the company who's been working on this for ages and has loads of context and loads of great ideas, only to find that their stuff is sort of overruled by someone who just wants to exert their opinion on something because they've just seen it for the first time. So I think it depends on the different business size, but a good agency should be tuned to both of these, all of these issues, and the good agency should have them on their radar and build into their processes and build into their communication allowances for these to prevent them, or at least sort of mitigate the effects of them.
A really important point you made there was about context. So I've seen this happen quite a lot with both clients and in companies that I've worked for, and is that they'll hire somebody new that's quite senior and they've done something in a very specific area in a very specific way, and then they come in and it's almost their selling point to the company. Oh, I'll do this for you. And this happened in one of my previous jobs where this guy came in, they created a new head of growth which was completely not in marketing, it was somewhere in product which we never touched, and as marketers we've done all the experiments with PPC you could have possibly thought of. We tried everything and we kind of knew what worked, what didn't work, and this guy came in and basically completely ignored the fact that we existed and just started doing the same experiments all over again. And obviously 90% of them didn't work because we're selling a very complex product, yada yada yada, but that was his selling point, and lo and behold, he spent a bunch of money and then got fired because of it. But it's that context of where you're at and then of what you've done, because this will happen with outbound, with SEO, with PPC, with agencies. People will just swoop in and be like, oh yeah, we're doing this thing again that I did at my other job, and it just completely doesn't work, because no two companies are the same, I guess.
Yeah, immensely frustrating, I think, on both sides. I don't know how we stop swoop and pooping, but I don't know,
I think
umbrellas.
as an agency or as a consultant, I think you can kind of almost see these people happening. So as a consultant, you get brought in by the swoop and poopers and you're like, how is this going to go? Am I just going to give you an audit and then you're never going to do anything with it? Probably. Should I still take your money? Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. So I think as a consultant, you're the target of swoop and poopers, so you know who they are typically. And you probably find out pretty quickly if they're not and they want kind of a long-term solution, and they're, when you tell them it depends, they're okay with that answer instead of wanting a yes or no. And these are the steps and we will definitely do this. What do you think, Emma?
I think the only way to manage a swoop and pooper is the data, honestly, that's the only way, because people are always going to do it. But if the data says either please don't poop here or go poop somewhere else, then that's what the data tells you to do, right? You can use it, surely.
Though I've seen swoop and poopers that just absolutely override any kind of data and tell the story they want to tell. So yes, but also you have to be so hot on it that they can't basically say anything to contrast you, because if they can, they think they're right.
Yeah. In which case it's maybe data and communication.
So one of the things that happens a lot being a consultant or an agency is that you will give your plan, your audit, your strategy to your client, and it's going to be beautiful and amazing and you've done so much work on it, and then you check in a month later and it's like, okay, so how are we doing on these action points? And nothing has been touched and nothing has been done. How do you get your clients to do the work that they're meant to do? How do you try to encourage that, at least for you guys?
Yeah, I guess for us, because we have teams that implement as well, so we will, we'll use that. So we'll give them the report and say, who's going to be in charge of implementing this, and they will say we are, and then we'll check in a month later and say, how's it going? Doesn't look like anything's happened. It's been busy, and then we'll sort of offer to do that stuff for them. But there are times, of course, when you just can't get anything. You just can't get anything done. With big companies and legal departments, and when your contact in the client doesn't have any authority or doesn't have enough authority to get things done. I think one of the things that we've learned is sounds really boring and corporate, but sort of stakeholder management and bringing in stakeholders early in the process and making sure that everyone who's going to be involved understands why we're doing this. And there's quite a lot of sales involved in that, sort of taking them back to the basics. What you don't want is your contact in the client's company to be really bought in and to really understand it all. Like for us, we have a lot of YouTube videos and stuff, and it's very common that our contact in the company will know loads of ExposureNinja YouTube content. They'll have watched us for ages. And then they take all our recommendations upstairs and the person's like, I don't know what any of this stuff is. Like, I'm not bothered in this like CRO stuff. Like, just get out of my way. And they don't get anything done. So it's really important for us to get that person involved as well as early as possible, so they're really bought in. And then there's other times when, you know, we've got I was looking at a website project that we've been running, and the team's worked super hard on, you know, getting this thing done and making it really beautiful, but also really conversion optimized. And then the client has, once we've built it out, the client's been like, yeah, can we take out that? Can we take out that? And, you know, by the end of it, it's this sort of Frankenstein monster thing. And all of the stuff that they thought they were buying with the conversion optimization has just been sort of ripped out or butchered. And it's really painful to see, but at the end of the day, you're sort of doing a job for the client. They're paying you to do it. So, you know, if they want to drill a hole in the side of its head, then the answer isn't no, it's fetch my drill, like that. and that's really painful. But I think we got to accept sort of where we are, and we got to accept the terms of the relationship. Really, it's very difficult. If you've got any tips, then I'm all for it.
I don't know if I do. I refuse a lot of work. That's not a great tip. You know, I just don't get into a lot of work because, you know, it's not going to be the right fit. And then again, same as you, I tried to get stakeholders in, and I tried to get multiple people to kind of be in the same team as you, especially if you can get like investors and that kind of thing on your side. That's really powerful, but, you know, it depends if you have access to those people. Yeah, just be strict, I guess.
And I guess using stories and like if we're talking about selling ideas to people, you've got to be aware. I'm thinking of an example from this week where the marketing person really into it, really like super, absolutely loves it, wants to implement all of it. The CEO, much more financially driven and doesn't really care about all this marketing stuff. Everything's an expense, just get rid of it. So the story that we told there, or the bunch of stories that we told there, is about how this work has led to financial results, and, you know, speak their language, make sure that they understand that, you know, you've done this other times and it's turned into money, which is the outcome that they're really after. And that, you know, using that type of thing can get a yes, whereas previously it would have just been this is all expense, I don't want expense, get out type thing.
What's it like running a decent agency then, Tim? Because it sounds like you guys have got your shit together, you've got processes in place. What's that like when you're trying to manage the expectations of your clients and also deliver really good work?
It's exhausting is the best word I can think. It's really exhausting. Sometimes we think it would be a lot easier to just offer like one service and not care so much about ROI. Like if we just made the call to just deliver what people asked for rather than what they actually need, then I think our lives would be a lot easier. But the fact that we've decided that we are going to be we're going to be accountable for ROI, and that we're going to be obsessed with ROI, means that as well as having like traffic generating services, we need conversion rate optimization, and we need paid channels and email marketing and all this additional stuff. So it's really exhausting. These things are all changing so much, and you've got to keep on top of everything, and you've got to make sure standards are high, and you've got to make sure everyone's bought into that sort of culture. So it's definitely not easy, but it's also incredibly rewarding when you get a story from a client that you've, you know, completely transformed their business, or the marketing manager's been promoted on the back of the results that they've had. Like that stuff it's such a rush. It really is enjoyable. So yeah, very, very hard. But really, really great fun as well, which is lucky, because if it wasn't, I'd have sacked it off ages ago.
It's so true though. It's all about that partnership that you've got with and I think this goes back to a little bit about that sort of like natural tension sometimes between a client and an agency, is that you are, as an agency or a consultant, you are kind of like an extension of the internal team, right? And you've got to see it that way. So the fact that you guys feel good about the work that you've done has helped the internal team, I think matters a lot.
Yeah, for sure. If you're working with a business that has a particular, like a really ambitious goal, or they're under a lot of challenge, if I think about some of the campaigns that we've worked on which have been most rewarding for the teams, it's when a client is under like some sort of real threat from a competitor that's maybe got loads more funding, or there's some sort of existential thing going on in their business. And we've been able to work with them and figure a way through this. And we helped a lot of clients pivot and grow during COVID, which was like the rush and the energy during that time was incredible, because these businesses were, the marketers and the owners were just in total panic mode. Like, this has shut down our entire business. So there was one where we worked with who they sell like educational equipment and training for schools, and obviously all of the schools were shut down. Like, totally unprecedented thing, but their entire customer base was immediately sent home, and we helped them pivot to selling tuition material for parents who were going to be homeschooling their kids. And, we came up with the plan, we helped them do it, we advertised for it, we got all the revenue for them. And like, we saved the business. And the rush that the team had from that, and the rush that I get watching that is amazing. So it's really good. But, when you're actually in the trenches day to day, it's really, it's hard going, and there is a lot of pressure, but you can't beat it. It's really addictive, which is why I'm still here.
So what would you say is the value of working with a really good agency for any marketing team or marketing individuals working in-house?
I think this can really vary from, sometimes it's nice to have someone who's sort of on your team and gets you, and someone who can give you a bit of backup. I think a lot of marketing teams can feel quite isolated against company leaderships, particularly if they're a very small team. We often see it where a marketing manager will be brought in, they'll be the first marketing person in the company. And that's a really sort of intimidating thing. You feel like all of the weight of the world is on you, and all the pressure is on you to build the leads and build the sales. So it can be nice to have someone on your team. After a while, after a good relationship, it can be, totally transformational. We've had, probably my favorite example of the impact on an individual is one of our clients we started working with ages and ages ago. I think he was a marketing manager or someone on the marketing team. Anyway, he got some good results for the business through working with us. Then he left to start up his own thing. And when he started his own thing, the first thing he did was bring us on. And then we worked with them for 6 years or something, and helped them grow from nothing to decent size. And then he's had a 8-figure cash exit, and now he's done, set for life. And that's amazing. Like, looking at the impact that digital, I'm not taking credit for his cash exit. Like, he's obviously worked super hard, built an incredible organization, but knowing that we've been there throughout to sort of support him and to take care of the digital side of things is just amazing. And I think it's really weird. I'm such a people pleaser, and my first ever client was a plasterer that I lived next door to. And I built a website for him, and he was able to buy a house. And I thought, wow, what an amazing effect this digital marketing thing can have on a person's life. And that is still what I'm chasing every single day, is those sorts of stories. It's those sorts of effects on businesses, and sort of by proxy the people in them. I think that's the most addictive thing. And that's why we're in digital marketing, because digital marketing you can have really sort of transformational life stuff. And that sounds a bit sort of grandiose, but I think fundamentally that's what it boils down to, really, for me anyway.
Yeah. Also, as well, like, you as an individual did that, right? Like, it wasn't part of this big company. It wasn't part of this big scheme and structure where you're just a little cog. Like, you yourself literally built that website, and then the guy obviously had to do the plastering work that came through it, but it meant that he could buy himself a house, which is so huge. Also, half of my career credit is ExposureNinja, because you worked on Clearview for like years and years before I got there, and it was really great, and I just had to like tinker on top to make it really, really, really amazing. So like I totally get that. I totally agree with that. And yeah, it's really nice to see as a consultant now as well, people that you work with doing well and getting promoted because of the work that you're doing together. Obviously not just because of that, but because you're kind of helping them along the way. So yeah, I totally agree. That part of it is really, really satisfying.
Looking for an agency, that's the kind of stuff that you should be looking for, right? Is that, yes, you want to hear that the agency has helped build and grow a business and made them loads of money, but also the fact that they actually take some pride in that and that they are excited by the fact that they helped people as well. I think that's really important, because it is a partnership. You know, you're an extension of other people's teams. So how, when you're looking for agencies, Tim, because I think this is also one that I've come up against looking at agencies, what should you be looking for when it comes to what kind of, you know, measurements and value an agency can actually bring you?
I think making sure that your values are aligned, I think, is important. And you know, ExposureNinja is all about ROI, but that's not right for everyone. Some people want creativity. Some people get a real joy out of, you know, creativity for creativity's sake. And I think it's important to know what you want. If you start talking to an agency and they are like they just want to brainstorm loads of ideas and stuff, and you're like, yeah, but I just want more money in the bank account, then you've got to trust that there's a mismatch there. Whereas if you just want more money in the bank account, they're like, yeah, let's just, you know, if you just want to brainstorm loads of ideas and they're just trying to bring it all back to ROI, then you've got to recognize that you're not going to have a good time. They can, you know, they can pretend that they can do all that stuff, but at the end of the day, you've got to find someone who's sort of naturally aligned to you. I think the other thing that people need to think about is what sort of relationship they want with their agency. I think there's a sort of spectrum from doctor-patient on one end, where you know, you want an agency that's just going to tell you what to do. They're going to be quite strong. When you go to the doctor, you don't go, right, doctor, I need you to prescribe me this, this, and this. You go to a doctor and say, hey, doctor, like, here's what it looks like. And they go, right, you need to take this twice a day. Here's your prescription, get out. And I think some clients like that, and some clients want that. And then you've got people in the middle who just want a collaborator. They want someone who's on the same level as them, and they just basically want a sort of friend who can, you know, do some stuff and they can bounce ideas, but they're both on the sort of same level. And then you get some clients where they just want a slave. They literally just want to throw things at you and say, you need this to be done, you know, in this sort of time scale. And that, you know, that's fine too. There are agencies that are, you know, they need to be dominated. They need to be told exactly what to do, because they don't have a sort of an aggression or a desire to take control of the relationship. So I think you've got to work out where you want to sit on that spectrum and find an agency that suits that. We tend to be more along the sort of doctor-patient, collaborator side of the spectrum. We don't operate particularly well as a slave, because we're quite opinionated and we're quite strong about what drives ROI. So if people will just, you know, boss us around, then, you know, the team get a bit sad about that, and it doesn't quite work. Whereas I do know other agencies that, unless you give them like clear direction, they're just going to flounder. You know, if you say to them, you know, what should we be focusing on? What should we be prioritizing on? They're like, I don't know. What do you want to be focusing on? Like, so they need a driver or an instructor, really. So I think before you start looking for an agency, you just got to get clear in your head. What are my values? Like, what do I actually want my agency to be aligned to? Because you can, if you say to any agency, I just want to come up with creative ideas, they will say, okay, cool. Yeah, we can come up with creative ideas. Sure. You need to know, and you need to be testing for that without sort of asking them directly. And then what sort of relationship do you want with them, and how much input do you really want them to have on the strategy, versus do you just want them to be instruction takers? And I think that will get you, at least it will get you an agency that you have a chance of success with. And then it's just about, you know, check case studies, check results. Don't just talk to one person, talk to multiple people in the company. Make sure that they haven't just put the bright one on the call with you, and that there's actually something going on there. Yeah. Good luck.
I was just going to say, because you mentioned the ROI thing, Tim, and obviously it's something that Ruta and I are super hot on. We're like, know your number, don't worry about, like, you obviously, you know, if your ROI shit, you're going to need to work to improve it, but you should at least know what it is. Is it the job of an agency to try and help the client understand being more revenue and, pipeline and conversion focused?
It can be. I mean, I think there are times where actually the client can't do that. So if I think about clients that we haven't worked particularly well with because of that, it's, they're trying to drive brand awareness to drive people into retail, for example. So they actually can't track ROI. And you could make some fancy spreadsheet which would look at, trailing 12-week sales and so, but it's all bullshit, right? So I think there are situations where that type of thing is impossible, but for everyone else there's absolutely no excuse. So yeah, as an agency or as a consultant, I think you can start that conversation. I think clients are often impressed if you enter the conversation with, right, we've done the numbers based on what you've given us about your margin and your targets, and here's what we need to hit in order to pay for ourselves within the first 3 or 6 months. Then I think that's quite impressive and that's quite reassuring to a client. So absolutely, there's a lot that we can do.
Are there any questions that you've heard in client calls, either from you guys or from the clients to you, that you're like, yeah, like we're onto something here? That's a great question, and I'm so glad you asked.
I think asking an agency about clients that it hasn't worked out with or mistakes that they've made is quite a good way of doing it. And what you don't want is the sort of false modesty, LinkedIn type thing, like, oh, my biggest regret was, I didn't take the credit for all the amazing work that I did, or some, half-assed crap like that. I think you're looking for questions around like culture fit and stuff. You're looking for responses around culture fit to show that they actually understand and they're self-reflective. Because if they're not self-reflective, then they can't grow and develop. So yeah, that's a pretty good question. I can't think of anything else other than obvious ones, but.
Are there any like particular red flags that when you're talking to a client, where I'm also interested to know if you've ever refused any clients based on this question, but like, is there anything that people will say to you in a call or the team in a call that is like red flags, alarm bells, do not take this client, run for the hills?
Yeah. Oh, we've had six SEO agencies in the last 5 months. They're all idiots. That. Okay, right. Yeah, you're firing them after the onboarding call then. Yeah, that type of thing. If there's you can tell if there's a person, particularly if it's your contact, who's going to be really, really difficult, and not because everyone's ambitious, everyone's under pressure, but some people are just they're not nice to do business with, and we'll say to our teams, like, one of our values is we enjoy the journey, and that means that we work with people who are respectful and nice and kind. And we've had people turn up for calls in their underwear and all this type of stuff. It's just and not just small businesses either. Really sort of super inappropriate and stuff like that. And you can often spot some of those more personality-driven traits early on, and we'll refuse clients based on that. We'll quite often refuse clients based on either their goals or their level of ambition for what they've actually got so far, or the business that they're in, if it's something that we don't feel fits our values really.
I guess maybe the one I was going to pick on is the like how you work with, and how you treat the in-house marketers when they're there. Because personal story time, I have found quite often, and it's basically been with agencies that I'm not necessarily very convinced we're actually doing a very good job. But also I felt quite patronised by agencies at times, because I think maybe sometimes there's an assumption maybe you're the only marketer, or you're in a really small team, that because you're in a small team or you're the only marketer, you clearly can't have your shit together, and that everything must be like running away with it, all the time, and that therefore you're spread really thin and your expertise might not be there. So yeah, I'm just interested, like from your perspective, Tim, like what's the starting point of the relationship with your clients, and how should they be treated?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I can imagine, Emma, you're very on it, aren't you? Both of you two are very, very like on it and on the ball. And I'm imagining an agency feeling threatened by that. If they're looking at a smaller business and thinking, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake, and all of a sudden there's someone in there who's like really on it, really switched on, and asking them the difficult questions. So I can imagine that they'd be, threatened by that if they don't have their shit together. We obviously, it sounds obvious, but we try and view in-house teams as a source of expertise, which we absolutely need if we're going to make this thing work, right? These are people that have been working on this site for ages. They know it inside out, and unless you have anything other than a collaborative relationship with them, it just can't work. So I don't think that there's really any other way. If you're determined to succeed, if success is your goal, if just being retained and sort of flying under the radar is your goal, then this person could be an impediment to a nice peaceful life where you don't have to do very much. But as long as you're actually bought into success, then in-house teams are absolutely fundamental to making it work.
I find that agencies aren't as bad at that. So I feel like agencies typically want to do a fairly good job and be retained, but also do a good job because they know that as soon as budgets are a question, if you're not doing a good job, you'll get cut anyway. But I have found an enormous amount of individuals that don't care about doing a great job, and if they know that they can get away with it where there's no expert, like the shit I've seen is incredible. Just a quick example, it's an SEO one, so you'll like it probably. There was an SEO expert working on a website. It was a legal firm's website. So legal firm is a great company to swindle if you're into that, because they know nothing about marketing. So what they were doing was saying that, oh yeah, I'm working on this SEO, and he was charging like 200 quid a month or something. And I was like, okay, so what have you been working on in terms of SEO? And then he pulls up this list of backlinks, which he's had like prepared for weeks and months on end, and obviously most of them are like insane toxicity level to start with that. And I'm like, okay, well, we need to disavow half of these to start with. And he's like, okay, are you gonna do it? And I'm like, no, could you please disavow these because they're horrible, and can you replace them with good ones? And then I was like, okay, so what else have you been doing? And he's like, oh, that's it. And I was like, what do you mean? The entire website is unoptimized. Like, you haven't touched a piece of text on the website for the last 6 months. And he's like, oh yeah, I've just, whatever, I've just been doing the backlinks. And I'm just like, oh my God. And I assume this company has spent like, a few £1,000s with him at that point, and he's just not touched anything. And that shit gets my blood boiling.
Well, that's why people think marketing agencies are rubbish, isn't it? It's you see that 10 times, and you're obviously going to make the connection that marketing agencies are rubbish. Very difficult to do a lot of SEO for £200 a month, but at the same time, if you can't if you can't do it, then don't offer it. Don't just hope that you're underneath the threshold that gets looked at by the CFO. So you're just hoping that you're going to get away with it for a couple of years or something. But
yeah, they totally did, because of the kind of people they worked with, the partners in the law firm. Like, they can't ask that many questions, right? The guy is saying he's doing it, it's cheap, let's keep doing stuff. And it's just, yeah, what a waste of time.
It's horrific. I wrote a book called How to Get to the Top of Google, and I did it because at the time I was building websites for tradespeople, and their entire knowledge of SEO was from Yellow Pages sales reps. And these people knew absolutely nothing. They just knew what to say to get that tradesperson to hand over, 100, 150, 200 quid a month. That's all they needed. And then, they bosh out, 10 of those a day on cold calls or whatever. And I wrote the book. So I was like, you need to know enough about the thing that you're buying. You don't have to become an SEO expert, but you need to know enough about the thing that you're buying to know if that person is feeding you garbage or not. But it's very difficult, and legal is a great example. We've had legal clients that we haven't been on the phone with for a year, and luckily for them, we're absolutely determined to make them case studies and make them award winners and generate more leads for them. But it would be incredibly easy to do absolutely nothing, and I guess that's kind of scary. But the client needs to ask those difficult questions, or hire a Ruta to ask those difficult questions.
It's probably not worth it. If you're paying 200 for an SEO, unless they're your mate, probably not worth it. Just bin them off.
Yeah. If you're paying 200, probably if you're paying less than £500 a month for SEO, you would notice no negative effect from just turning that off immediately.
The thing that I've seen in terms of agency cowboys has generally been around like social media, and where you pay an agency or someone, you know, just anyone, to just do your social media for you. And all they're doing is basically like regurgitating the same content over and over and over and over again, with no creativity, with no like thought. That, you know, sometimes you even click on stuff, there's like no hashtags. Sometimes there's not even a clear CTA to click through. And people will just pay, you know, especially if you're a small business, people will just pay for that, right? Because they're like, it's better than doing nothing. But actually, sometimes you might as well just do nothing, because you're just screaming out into the void. So I think, again, I agree with you, Tim, on your point, which is that you should know enough. You don't have to be a marketing expert, but you should know what's good and what's bad, maybe. If you've not seen any, like, you know, improvements, or you've not gained anything from the marketing spend that you have put out there, even if it's minimal, that you should look at.
That's it, isn't it? If you haven't gained anything, like every business owner should be able to make a decision about money in, money out. And you don't want to do it like, you know, oh, it's day 6 of my SEO campaign, where's the money out? Which is another problem. But you know, after a period of time, you should be able to just make a logical money in, money out decision. Like, is this actually working for me? The social media one's a great example. That's sort of like heartbeat, isn't it? You just want, it's business owners thinking, oh, I think people are on Facebook and Instagram and all this stuff. Like, we just need to do something. And, you know, like 3 impressions per month, and it's just utterly pointless. Just turn it all off. If there's any marketing that you're doing that's less than a few £100 a month, just turn it off.
Get yourself a massage.
Get yourself
Just go
Yourself a massage.
Go to the pub for a sesh. Like, that's probably going to be better.
Yeah, or save up a few months and, you know, get yourself a new website or something. Yeah, there's a huge amount of, there's a lot that you can do with digital marketing, and there really is. And there's a huge amount of just pointless activity that you can do as well. And people have to learn the difference between the two, really. And that is on the business, I think.
Thanks for joining us, Tim. That was awesome. I don't think any of us will ever be able to forget Swoop and Poop. I'll always be thinking that in the back of my mind now, every time I meet someone. Are you a Swoop and Pooper? So thanks for that.
My job is done.
But also, we'd like to categorically say that not all marketing agencies are shit, and you need to closely listen to Tim's advice on that, and make sure that you're, you know, looking at the value, make sure your goals are aligned, make sure there's a good fit between the two of you before engaging an agency, and then you can't go far wrong. So thanks so much, Tim. Thanks, Ruta, and we'll see you for the next episode.